This episode is going to be in 2 parts.
2 parts, because I have a breakdown during the first part, and it was really great because it led to a great breakthrough. So it was great to just take pause, put my practices in place, and do some self-care to revisit it. It was good to recognize that I was too close to home, too.
Yeah.
So just hence splitting it up in 2 parts.
So make sure you tune in for next week also. If you feel like today's episode drops on a little abrupt note, it does.
We come back.
We come back, though. There is a cliffhanger. Whoa, today is going to be quite an interesting conversation. And probably, I'm guessing, our most like raw and vulnerable yet. We've, in this series, talked about so many things, and I think it's so appropriate that for our season finale, we kind of tie it all together and really highlight that all of these pieces, it's so dynamic in our journey, right? Like, we don't just work on this one thing and then it doesn't touch another thing. Like, everything that we focus on and everything that we process and everything we grow through has ramifications and affects other things that we're learning or growing in. And that's both from a mind, body, spirit, emotions perspective. And I just want to thank you and applaud you, Natalie, for your vulnerability and sharing, and just recognizing that we're here with our stories to help other people. And for this demographic, we really take away from the stories of others who know our similar experiences and have literally walked in similar boots. And I think that this is going to be a really, really special and impactful episode today. So with that, how are you feeling about
I'm good.
Sharing?
I'm ready. Like we kind of talked about before we filmed, just sharing your story is always hard, and I see the value in just sharing. I get to meet more people and see that my story is not that unique. There's other people who have been through so many similar things as me, and so it's not unique in that aspect, but it is my story, so it's unique to me. And it's just so comforting to know that there's other people walking that same story, and I don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And I realize there's such a benefit. The more I share, I just feel better. So each time sharing and just getting a little bit more off my chest, so to speak, or we talk about the rucksack and having our whole life and conglomerate of all of our stories and experiences all in this bag. Well, it's just a chance for me to take a rock out and share it and take away some of the shame. I think a lot of us, especially myself, I get wrapped up in the shame of, I had to go to treatment, and I had set my life up for this, grand story, and I didn't make it the way I thought I would. And so in my eyes, at first, it was just a failing to do my plan. And now I just see it as like a redirection. Yeah. But that doesn't mean like I'm 100% on the right path. It's like I'm still in my practice and trying, and I still have bad days and good days. And I think bringing all this together is a really good way just to start to show people that the little pieces of recovery along the way, how, like you said, it affects everywhere else, because it is a lifelong journey. Yeah. I've done so much work in the last 2 years, and then I had a relapse of my PTSD in the last 2 weeks, and I've been really struggling, and it's been really humbling because I've done all this work, and I have so much awareness around what's happening, and so it's even more humbling this time around. But also I know this will pass. And so I think the comforting thing is I know what it feels like to be through this chapter, and it's like, okay, this chapter just came up again, and I may have dealt with it on a, physical level and an emotional level, but maybe not the spiritual level. And so now I'm tackling even further in that different layer, and it's just turned into a different journey. Yeah. But it is a lifelong practice.
It's a lifelong journey, and it is the human life and experience. We don't arrive at a place. There's
No, there's no arrival, and I thought there would.
Arrival. Yeah.
I thought there was that's why I pretty much relapsed too, because I've been pushing so hard for these last 2 years to just get to this end goal that I had created in my controllingness of like how I want to control the future to look like, and realizing that's not actually a target. That is the whole destination.
Yeah.
It was been more humbling than I expected it to be.
And also, as just a heads up for our listeners, we wanted to give a preface to this two-parter that there are going to be some triggering topics. Mm-hmm. We're going to touch on extreme burnout. We're going to touch on suicide, ideation. We're going to touch on doing like deep traumatic work. And for those, I know you feel the same way I do, that if anyone is in the midst of this, it could be a help. It also could activate some things. And so just the caution is to make sure that you have the supports that you need before really opening up Pandora's box even more. So I would encourage someone, if they're not in a point of being ready for that, to just pause the episode and find something else to listen to, a little bit lighter. But for those who maybe are not reaching that max point or even halfway to what you've experienced, this I really believe will shed some light on how we can do things in our life and set up our life in a way that really facilitates growth in a supportive and nurturing way. Mm-hmm. So with that, this is unscripted.
Yep, it is.
Unfiltered.
For it.
Our most raw conversation yet. And we want to thank our amazing producer, JD, for his willingness to go along on this journey with us. Mm-hmm. So, that being said, Natalie, give us maybe just a condensed, like, how long you were in the fire service and what that looked a little bit like in 2 minutes or so before you started maybe consciously feeling some of the effects of like maxing out that backpack and like feeling like your capacity was really, really getting to its peak max point.
Yeah. And what drew me to the fire service was I started and my backpack was already full of a lot of adverse experiences, and I was seeking that kind of brotherhood and connection. And when I first got hired in the fire department, going through the academy and then meeting my crew and being in that team atmosphere, it was just a perfect segue from being an athlete my whole life and being in sports. It was the equivalent of playing my favorite sport all day. That is what I called my job.
Wow.
I would show up, and this was just out of the academy, showing up for shift. It was, everything was the best ever. And I even had a captain who was like, I'm going to call you best ever because everything is best ever. Like every meal is the best ever. The training was the best ever, because to me it was the highlight of what I've been searching for in my career. It was exciting. I never knew what was going to happen next. I needed that. I liked the high, fast pace and the amount of muscle it took to do a lot of the things, being stronger and really leaning into my working out and bodybuilding, and it just kind of fit with my values and what I had. And it was like playing your favorite sport, and I found this like family to be a part of. And then slowly over time, I had some really big experiences with a department that size, being the second female. We had some issues with not having female restrooms, and it put me in this predicament where I had to just figure it out every day, and I felt like there was no way to talk about it or share because like basic needs weren't even met at the station.
I feel like, how many years ago was this?
This was only like 9 years ago.
9 years ago. I feel like even in 9 years we've come far enough that if where I work for, if we didn't have at least a bathroom that was accessible to females, like that's very worthy of suing the city.
Yeah.
Like, wait, you're hiring me, but then I can't,
But
like, have
no
a place to
facilities.
take a shit.
Yeah.
How does this work?
Yeah. Yeah. So just that chipped away at my confidence and the fact that I felt like I didn't belong, and it's like nobody made those considerations, and I just kind of stuffed it down, and I just kept throwing more rocks into my rucksack and just kept stuffing it down. And it just was slowly like that over the next like 5 years, and it just started chipping away at my soul.
You know, it's crazy too. Brene Brown says, we're not looking to fit in, we're looking to belong. And so all of the things that we do to think we fit in, we're actually like not even accomplishing that. So that story or that feeling and sense that I don't belong, that is so impactful of our, like the state of our well-being. There's no way to feel like you don't belong in such a like palpable, tangible way and also thrive. So that makes sense that with these repeated incidences and stories, and then I'm betting part of that was a trigger from childhood too, this like belief of not belonging. So then it just gets repeated over and over and over and over again, and you're
it just gets reactivated. And at the time I wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was just upset by this circumstance that I was going through at the moment, when in reality I was actually upset about, you know, not having a proper stable family, and I didn't have parents who looked after me, or I didn't have that safety, and I didn't have facilities and things like that when I was younger. So it just re-triggered that old wound. So you're right, it's repetitive. It just keeps coming up, the trauma. And it's until you're aware of it and recognize where it comes from, you can't fix it. So you just keep adding insult to injury.
Yeah. So this was about how many years into your career you really started feeling the weight of that?
About 5 or 6 years in. And that was right when I got pregnant with my daughter. And so that was another big activator. It's like, I'm already going to have a kid and my life's about to change. And, you know, I had this unstable relationship at the time, and inevitably I became a single mom. But when I came off the line, we had no maternity policy, and they didn't know what to do with me. And so I just wanted to keep coming to work, but I couldn't be on the line, so I wanted to be in the office. And there was no easy transition into that work. There, I had to fight for my position in the office, and then I had to create my own role, and then I created my own SOP for uniforms because they expected me to wear a uniform. And it's no mix, and I'm working in an office, and I'm pregnant. So they were expecting me to continue to wear a uniform, and I had to push for all these different changes, and it was just a re-triggering of like, I don't matter enough for people to even make these considerations ahead of time.
And that experience is, like you said, you have a unique experience in this, with this theme, but I know one of my sisters just went through the same thing with her department of, as women are emerging in this workspace, there aren't reproductive life SOPs and guidelines, and you're having to, in the midst of the process of being pregnant, which is
That's already a process.
It's already a process in and of itself. One that I have opted out of. That is a lot.
Yeah, so it just adds that stress, and I didn't have a big community around, you know, having such a belief system from when I was a child that I wasn't worthy of love and I didn't belong. It's like I never wanted to make any waves or cause any ripples anywhere. I just wanted to fit in, and that was my sense of belonging. And it became very aware when I was having a kid just how different I was, and I really felt the exclusion, and that's when it really started. And from there, it was just really a series, I want to say, it's just a series of hurt feelings. But that's what it is, because I was so vulnerable in such a vulnerable stage, and I had such young wounds, and just re-triggered my childhood stuff.
And I don't think that's a negative thing to say. Like,
But it feels so negative in this line of work, because you're supposed to be so tough. And, you know, I was trained not to cry, and I wouldn't put any emotions on, and I always lived up to that. I mean, that was a value I hung my hat on. That's how I lived my life.
Do you feel like you were a stuffer?
Oh, I stuffed everything down. Yeah.
Were you aware of, what percentage were you aware of stuffing versus not stuffing? Because we've talked about, you've been in therapy for a lot of your life too.
Yeah,
so.
on and off, 20 years. And I didn't realize I was stuffing it down. I thought it was protecting everybody around me. So really, I was kind of martyring myself where it's like, oh, I can handle this, but just because I can doesn't mean I should handle it alone. That's what I've come to realize is just because I can doesn't mean, I should. It doesn't mean we should.
Yeah, it's like if you're putting sugar in your coffee just because you can doesn't mean you should. There are a lot of things in life that just because you can, that's been a hard lesson for me to learn too, where there are so many good things that you can do, and yet are they truly good for you? And I think, as we've talked about with our unique demographic, women are already set up to have so much responsibility and to look out for others and be caregiving and at the exclusion of themselves. But I think in this career, it's hard to believe the degree in which we actually expound upon that and highlight that, and that you didn't feel like rocking the boat because you didn't want to make waves as a woman who was pregnant for a department that just was outdated. That's so heavy and sad. And we are doing this podcast because we need us to show that we are asking the systems in place to do better for women in fire, women in first response. And it's not fair that is the system that we're currently in. But also, for you, looking back now, it's like you were the first one to go through all of that, but now there are things in the place that can just be adjusted and edited for the women coming after you. It's so funny. I didn't think that I would be a trailblazer in the fire service.
Yeah, in this day and age.
Yeah. I was like, especially for where I work, I was like, okay, they've been hiring women for 30 years. I'm not a trailblazer. We have one of the highest percentages of females in the country at 7%.
Yep.
So, which, when you think about the actual context of that 7 women out of 100 firefighters, that's still, I was very naive in that regard. But that all of that was on your shoulders and you had no support systems in place and advocates, I can imagine was very, very heavy, and even if on a subconscious level.
Yeah, and I just didn't recognize it as being trauma or going through it. It was just the way of life. And I just thought, every shift was just hard. Every day at a time. It was just hard, and that was just it. And I knew eventually I'm like, people will have to realize, and this will have to change, and we're going to have enough women. And then we started hiring more women, and then I started to recognize more and more change started to happen. But it was also this weird gray area where so many of us, there was 2 women who were brought on after me, and they were affected by it and the changes as well. And both these women have also left our fire department.
Wow.
So there was really a 5-year window where it was tumultuous every single day. It felt unsafe to come to work. There was
in an unsafe job. It felt unsafe.
Yeah, and so it never felt like home. It's just you're always hyper vigilant, waiting for the next thing. You have to be careful of your words and wondering if your crew's even going to have your back, or just wondering every single day. We shouldn't have those worries already on top of a career that we don't know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were in therapy during this time, what were some of the themes that came up, like what you remember processing?
Well, and at the time I had extenuating like circumstances outside of that was just work. And then in my personal life, I was going through, a relationship that was failing, and he was very unsupportive, and his family was unsupportive, and I was just all alone at home as well, trying to figure this out, and then alone at work trying to figure it out. And it just, we never know what somebody else is going through unless we really take time to stop and ask questions and listen. And I feel like there was never space given to even bring up any of these issues because nobody cared enough to even listen. And if other captains and other advocates are advocating on my behalf for me and they're not getting results, why would I advocate for myself? In my experience in my life from the beginning, no one has advocated for me, and it's gone nowhere standing up for myself, or I would get in trouble for doing so. So that ingrained in my personality not to make those waves. So it's just a trauma response that became my personality that in turn added more struggle than maybe somebody else who didn't have that same experience coming into the same expectations in the same environment. They may not have been as affected as I was because we have different history.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's all about your tolerance and what you're bringing to the table, and how much your tolerance is and what you can handle and take on. And just some of us our bags are fuller than others.
So you had your daughter, and then you were trying to single parent an infant with very, very little support. And that was about the 6-year mark. In your
6
career?
years in.
And you were overall how long at your department before
5 years before having her.
you separated?
12 years.
12 years. Okay, so that was the halfway point. So you went another 6 years of accumulation and load before you hit a breaking point. What, after having your daughter, would you say, did you find, like, points of equilibrium? Did you find ways to, like, invest back in yourself? Did you find good ways to process? Or was the day in, day out experience that this is hard, but this is my life, and I just got to push through?
Yeah, because that's what we're trained to do and told to do, right? You just keep pushing through. And there's no other alternative. I mean, I had a kid who was relying on me, and she only had me, so what was I supposed to do? It's like I had to step up and care for her, and I just stuffed everything else down, and every day became survival. It became about making sure all the basics were met, that I made it to work, and I couldn't even take on any more extra bandwidth from there. It was just about survival. But it was about finding nannies and sometimes having to go to work with my kid in tow with no sick time because we had no maternity policy, so I used my sick time for that. So having gone back to work, no sick time. I couldn't take time off when I didn't have a nanny. I've had to bring her to work and have coworkers' wives help me. And it was just such a chaotic personal life that blend into my professional life. There was just no stability anywhere. I had no time to even create stability in my life.
And then on top of that, you have not sleeping well at the firehouse, not sleeping well with a little one.
Yeah. And then, then I had some personal medical stuff going too. My appendix burst when she was 6 weeks old. So even in, postpartum, I had an appendix burst and I had surgery. And I didn't have any extra sick time, so I just stayed in that window. But you should only have to go through one traumatic thing like a childbirth and not have another sickness or something else come up. So that was very unexpected, and it just compounded. And it was just continuously like that. I ended up coming back to work, and because I couldn't pump, I got mastitis. And then I had to go in for another surgery. And so because of mastitis from not being able to pump while I was on duty, and it just it was like that continuously medically, all the way until in 2023 when I had my hysterectomy finally from, positive uterine cancer. it's just been one thing after another compounding.
Which, looking back, now we can probably say, oh, the signs were there.
The signs are all there. And then I think that stress just takes a toll on your body anyway. And I'm such a believer that the stress manifested in all these illnesses trying to teach me and show me to slow down the whole time. And I couldn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I'm sure it's possible for, single parenting to happen in the fire service. But as we're seeing with your story, without community and without support, it makes it just so impossibly difficult. Like, I have coworkers who they have their wife or their partner is a nurse and they're a firefighter and they have 2 or 3 kids, and the amount of juggling is outrageous, and even with a partner that's stressful. So having all of that on yourself, and I know you've said in the past, like, your dad stepped in to help when he could, but for the most part.
Yeah, and my dad and I have reconnected since Deer Hollow, and so he's really been a big support, and I've been able to lean on him now. But at the time, he wasn't healthy. My family of origin wasn't very healthy, but he was severely overweight. He couldn't bend down to even pick up my daughter.
Oh, wow.
So I never felt comfortable enough to even leave her with him, and it was just never an option. So I always had a full-time nanny or some kind of child care. Her dad was in and out of the picture doing his own healing work at this point and gone. So at that point, it's, I converted my rooms. I made it so I could afford a nanny and just buckled down, and I lived and died by my calendar every single month. And it was, rotation of 6 different people and making sure she was taken care of and they're all safe, and then I can make it to work, and just the balance of every day that all of us do.
What I'm hearing is that before even the life-altering injury, it was just a slow trickle of Chinese water torture that over 10 years accumulated to just be too much.
Yeah, it was just too much. And all while doing that, I had, personal goals, and I was trying to set myself up. I had the future in mind and what I wanted to achieve. And so I had my daughter, and I started school. So I was also, going to school and trying to get my bachelor's. So I had other things I had added to my plate on top of it. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. There was a lot of different things along the way that I recognized I contributed to it. But my body was so comfortable being in that chaotic mode. That was all it knew. And so it like thrived on that burnout. I think I've been in burnout for years, and it's just been a slow trickle. And I wasn't ever going to stop until the accident finally did make me stop.
And we've talked about the injuries that came before the accident, but even at that 10-year mark, you had several injuries in a row before you really hurt your neck.
Yeah, and just like little tweaks and here and there, but also like I have torn ligaments, and I had a surgery, and then I was on light duty, and our bodies, I was already just running on empty. I was not sleeping, so no matter how healthy I ate, how much I worked out, it's like at the root of it, I wasn't getting the basic sleep that I needed to restore my body, so it was constantly burned out and overworked, and so I was constantly pushing it to the max.
I think this is a good place to pause and, just verbalize that what we're talking about are a lot of external circumstances that were not ideal and were very challenging. And this isn't you on a pedestal of a pity party. This is facing the reality of, as long as the systems and the infrastructure is set up in such a way that, women don't have the external support that they need. Like, this is you went a long time doing all of that, and I can imagine there are others who wouldn't last a fraction of that time. Like, you had built yourself up in such a way that your tolerance, I think, maladaptions, be they may, allowed you to like keep pushing through and not be like, not have that connection to your body, not have that awareness of what was actually happening. But others who maybe didn't have those adverse childhood experiences would have been going through this and saying like, nope.
Yeah, and like in my IOP classes I do now in therapy, I have dispatchers and firefighters and police officers. We're all there in a supportive way to help each other with PTSD. And I hear all of them say, dude, if I didn't have a bathroom day one on the job, I would have like made a major fight.
Absolutely not.
Stood up for myself. This is not okay. No. And just hearing that was so validating. And I was like, yeah, it's like, but also it's recognizing I never had that same like drive. It never even occurred to me that I could fight and like stand up for that.
Yeah.
So it makes me really sad for myself to know that, you know, maybe had I taken that approach and I'd just been, you know, tougher, or maybe voiced it more, stood up for myself more, it would have caused a lot less damage.
But you and I also have the beliefs too that like we're here on earth to learn lessons, and we're here to evolve our souls and grow spiritually, and like we are going to run into circumstances that reveal the things that we need growth in and that we need some dissection from. And so at the same time, now you can look back and see, you know, hindsight 2020, what the universe was teaching you or asking of you, maybe that you just weren't ready to acknowledge and to see yet, or ready to grow in those areas yet. But all of those circumstances were nudges towards where you ended up being. And that was having to use your voice, reconnect with yourself, like get on this path of resolution and realizing that like the answers are in you, and wholeness is the path that you're on already. It's just a matter of like recognizing what's there that needs to be alchemized. And so now looking back, what are like some of the lessons you feel like the universe was nudging at you that actually like, okay, that was actually a gift?
I think the whole time all the nudges were teaching me about boundaries and just standing up for myself. I think I had multiple opportunities that I could have done that in my past, and I didn't. And I have gotten a lot of opportunity now in this stage where I'm at and having to fight for my workman comp rights and health insurance benefits and all these different factors. It's like I have to advocate so much for myself because nobody else in the process is. And so I think all these moments give me more confidence or more ability to be able to stand up for myself now, because I know what it looks like to not. And I know no one else is coming in to do it for me. So it's helped me in this day and age to be able to have more of a voice now.
Which having a voice is...
It's like a human right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. I love it. It is a human right. Okay, so the 10-year mark, we have this, unknowns to you, this career-ending injury that you didn't realize at the time was as bad as it was, and then suddenly you were having to deal with the ramifications of being out of work, which for anyone with just even a steady, stable, anything, like everything else being steady and stable in their life, to have that happen would be triggering on an enormous scale. So how much of that do you feel like really was the instigus of like, I can't do this anymore?
Really, the reality was like coming home from shift after that And the next day, not being able to lift my arm, and my daughter needed cereal, not being able to grab milk, not being able to feed her and get her the basic needs.
And just for our audience, remind us, 30 seconds, what happened?
I was pulling hose to take a hydrant.
5-inch hose.
A 5-inch hose on a 2-alarm apartment fire. And so I had it slung over my shoulder, and I was down like a football player would be running like a line back. And I was just running, and the hose line got caught on a curb. And so it came to a complete halt, and it just completely compacted and my entire right side of my body. And I herniated my cervical and my lumbar section of my back, and it went into my shoulder where the nerve is, my 6-7. And so that affected all the way down to my arm. I had no grip strength, couldn't lift it higher than my shoulder. A lot of impairments because of that.
So you couldn't pour your daughter milk, you couldn't lift your arm. It's dawning on you.
I'm like, okay, there's
bad.
There's a difference between like getting injured and getting hurt. And so I'm like, okay, now I'm injured. Like, this is a problem. So having already had multiple other injuries, and it's like, oh, here we go again. But this time I knew it was different. And when I went in and got my scans and was told I needed surgery, and it dawned on me this is going to be a lot bigger recovery than I expected, I really tried to lean into the department for more support, because I was starting to struggle with, I couldn't look after my daughter. How can I get to work? And I did attempt to stand up for myself, and I requested like to work from home, work from light duty in a different position, and all I was met with was no. So I finally get brave enough to even ask for something, and I had a doctor's note as well validating what I needed, and then to be told no by your chief, that was the moment when that was the final blow, the final abandonment, and I felt like there was no solution, and that was when I finally just let go.
And that was on the work side. But simultaneously occurring, there was a relationship fracture.
Yeah, and before I even got injured, I had broken up with my fiance 2 weeks before that. So even, I was raw from a breakup. We'd been together 3 years. We were engaged. So I was already sad and already in a harder, stressful place in life as we go through relationships.
And the person who had been helping with your daughter.
Yep, and then he's out of the picture, so I didn't even have nannies or childcare in place set up for this moment. It was all new territory again.
So you go to the doctor, you realize all of this needs to happen, you're out of work. It was the inability to care for your daughter that was really what...
That was just like, that's my whole purpose of being here.
Was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. If I can't look after her, and that's my whole purpose, was being a mom, then why am I here? What am I good for? And then I just I couldn't see, I didn't have any support in place at the time, so I had no one to lean into and ask for support. And then when you're in a crisis, you don't think to even ask, because you open up your book and you're like, who do I even start with?
And you're in enormous amount of pain too. So pain just clouded everything.
And then not sleeping because I was in so much physical pain.
And it's so interesting. I think it's a relevant point to say, when it's so hard, even when we reach out and call someone to just say what is as it is. Like, I remember the day that you called me and you were, saying you had all this laundry, you could barely tie your shoe. And I was at the academy, and I remember stepping away and okay, I'm here to listen. I'm here to how can we approach this different? Adding perspective, but not realizing, because I didn't hear, phrases or trigger words that was oh, this is a good time for me to actually leave work and go to my friend and see how she's doing. And which is kind of a funny 2-part realization for me, that in these situations we have to recognize that we first responders, we're so hesitant asking for help because we're used to not being the ones who need to ask for help. And so we are very subtle in the way that we do ask for help. And even in that, we feel so uncomfortable. And it's so hard.
And it feels really big.
And it feels like so big.
You may be asking for something really small, or it may seem like very minuscule, but that is like a huge ask.
Yes. And so not asking like explicitly, and then recognizing that like, oh, this is what rock bottom actually does look like for a first responder to ask for help. Yeah. So we have to prime ourselves that, you know, I have a friend or a coworker who is feeling this way. Like, oh, these are signs that I need to know that can lead or can be like the precipice of the cliff, the rock bottom cliff. And that we don't go through life the same way as other people do, because we have this tolerance and this like grandiose inflated idea of our, I don't know, hero complex. So I think that situation was the first time that I had realized, well, looking back, when I looked back on it, I realized, oh, wow, so a friend in the fire service or a first responder, like, they say these things or they're hinting at these things, like, that actually is the time. It's not when I expect them to say, like, I'm in a crisis, I can't do this anymore. Like, those are what you kind of brace for, right? Yeah. But that's not actually what's going to happen. And being able to kind of build in your head this response for that, and like, okay, I'm going to be prepared for this, because we all will either find ourselves in that situation, or we will find someone close to us in that situation, just being in this career field. And that's another thing, like, we hear the stories, but we do not expect it. And we do not expect that we need to be prepared for it. So what can someone expect a first responder, like how they will ask for help?
And you're so right. A first responder is never going to call and be like, hey, I'm in crisis. They're not going to say I'm struggling today, most likely. They're going to, like in my case, I had a list of things that I needed just to get accomplished. I knew I couldn't get to them. So then delegation, reach out for someone. But cry for help could look like, hey, I need someone to give my daughter a ride. Or, hey, I need this piece of my oven replaced. It just looks like a small ask for help or a little task. And like, to me, that felt huge, even asking that, because I was the kind of person that, you know, I needed stuff on my houses that needed fixed. I just learned how to fix it. I go on YouTube, fix it. It's like I solved all my own problems. So by asking for help, someone may hear, hey, I need help getting my daughter to school all week. That's what they hear. But for me, what I'm really saying is like, I'm really struggling. I cannot get my daughter to school all week. I need help. Had I said it like that, maybe a response would have been, you know, reciprocated, or I understood a little bit more. But downplaying it in my own mind, I was in crisis, and anyone would be in crisis under those circumstances.
Anyone. Literally anyone.
Yeah. And just the fact that people didn't realize I was as bad off as I was, because I didn't, in like a protective way, I didn't want them to know I was. But also at the same time, I felt like I was saying, hey, I need help. I'm struggling. I need this. I need that. I felt like I was being needy and asking for things. And a lot of the, you know, reflection I get back now is like, nobody knew. That's how low I was. So from first responder, you know, that they start acting differently, or they start pulling away. Withdrawing is a big one. I started to isolate, and I just kind of withdrew from the picture. And people know that about me, that when I'm struggling, I kind of pull away, but they just let me have space instead of, you know, checking in on me to see maybe if I have some needs or offering, so then I didn't have to ask. I think offering, somebody in crisis is going to be more apt to say yes than they ever will to ask for it. Mm-hmm. So, like, somebody's having a bad day or struggling with somebody, it's, hey, how about I bring you a meal? How about I come by for a coffee? And just giving that little nudge for the person to say yes to can be everything.
Yeah, I love that. What you were saying about downplaying too, there's always in our head this voice that's like, well, everybody goes through these kind of things, or, well, it could be worse, or,
well, I got myself into this. I'm a single mom for a reason. Like, I got myself into this, so I
need to figure out a way to get through it myself. Nobody else can save me. Like, we have all of these downplaying of circumstances like that, and really that's our ego trying to protect us from being that vulnerable. And I think exposing the the that, like, we're actually not meant to live in isolation. We're not meant to have no support in those kind of times. That we're meant for community. We're meant to have people support and help. And so I know, for me, when I was going through burnout, that was the same thing. Like, I heavily withdrew from people. And I think that, like, there might have been 3 people at the 6-week mark that I told that I was going through what I was going through. But literally in my head, it was, well, every first responder goes through this.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a lot of tools to help. This will pass. Yeah, exactly. And really, it wasn't until, like, the 4th person I talked to and just unloaded and voiced that I got some very definitive support, and that I would not have gotten had I didn't use my voice. And then I think for you, there also is this, like, probably double whammy subconscious pain point that you as a person are someone who, are you an Enneagram 2?
3.
A 3 with a 2 wing?
Mm-hmm. 9 wing. 3 with a 9 wing.
So you're someone who already, like, wants to do and help and support and be there for others. Mm-hmm. So you get to this low point and you think that you're asking clearly, and you're not actually getting in response what you feel like you would have gotten or you would have given to someone who asked. So that is also really painful. And then I can imagine, like, whether it was conscious or subconscious, that probably fed into the I don't matter.
Yeah. Well, and then even in just the little things that, feel really trivial to even bring up and talk about, but, like, it really made an impact. Just the fact, if a member has a child in the fire department, they'll send out a picture afterwards and, like, a little email saying, so-and-so's wife had a baby, welcome to the fire family, right? Well, when I had my daughter, there was no photo, there was no, this is welcome to the family, Natalie's doing okay and out of the hospital. There was no notification, there was no email, there was nothing sent out. So I already felt so alienated from just those little subtle actions were such big signs to me that I didn't fit in even more. That, like, how could you not read into those little moments where it's, other people go through similar circumstances I was going through, and they're getting a massive amount of support and help and assistance. And I'm going through the exact same thing, and there's nobody. And I feel like I'm asking for help because I'm like, hey, I need this or that, and it's just not being received at all.
Yeah. You called me, and then 2 days later, you told me that you were going to go to this place called Deer Hollow. Is that the right timeline? Yeah.
My coworker on peer support, Darren Deming, like, he knows the signs and could recognize it. And I really opened up to him what was going on. And he was the one that told me, like, I'd known about Deer Hollow.
What made you make that decision? Did he
did.
Call you? He
showed up at my house.
Oh, wow.
He lives in Ridgefield. So he showed up at my house, and I was a mess and, like, incoherent, and it was at the peak of my absolute, like breakdown. I was suicidal, not going to live anymore. This is it. I'm done. And he shows up and starts talking to me, and he's like, Natalie, anyone in this situation, you need to go to Deer Hollow. Like, we want you to be here. You matter. This is the place that's going to support you. And even hearing that, I'm like, well, I can't leave my daughter for 41 days to go to treatment. It's like, I feel like I'm abandoning her. What kind of a mom would do that? But at the same time, I was fantasizing about the idea of suicide, like,
and leaving her
forever. Yeah. And I couldn't differentiate the difference. It just felt the same. Leaving for a month versus leaving forever just felt the same. And he was the one that he said, you just have to do this for her and do this for me. And I was like, okay, just surrender to the process. And that's when he made the call. And then I flew down there 2 days later.
Wow. And what I remember being so incredible about that was like your daughter's half-brother, his family was willing to have her stay with them.
Yeah, so it was such a blessing. So she was able to stay with her brother during that time, and she was with a great family and really well, loved and taken care of.
So the universe met you.
The universe met me, and it, not the way it should look, or it was definitely, it's like the first ex-wife, watching my daughter. It's like an interesting backstory, but when you say, hey, I need support and I need help, and the dad says, how much are you going to pay me to watch my own daughter? That was the kind of help I had surrounding me. So,
wow.
Hence why she went where she went, just someone that really loved her. And so it was such a better place for her.
Now, you've told me about Deer Hollow, but I don't think you've ever really described what that dynamic in that first week was like for our listeners. So you're on the plane. How are you feeling? What's going through your head?
Nothing. I just felt defeated. Really, really sad and just empty. And like I had this small sense of hope that like this would work out, but I also felt like it wasn't going to, and I was just going through the motions. I felt very, very empty. And I didn't even have the capacity to feel anything but empty. I didn't feel scared and feel anything except for empty.
You get off the plane, you're greeted by a stranger.
One of the nicest strangers ever. Lisa's the one that picks everyone up from the hospital, and she starts telling me about the program, and I'm just like a mess, crying at the front seat. We have a 45-minute drive through town, and she just, like a tour guide, starts listing off stuff through Utah, and I just kind of sat there quietly, and then we went through the intake process, and it was like 10:30 at night, and so we're at the computer going through. They search your stuff. They take, they have like items that you can't have at the facility, so they take those items and they lock them away, and then they make you sign for your stuff, and then they bring you to whatever house. There's 3 different houses that they have now, and so I was at the original ranch. And so that's where they brought me and put me in the room and said, okay, we'll be up at 7:00, meet downstairs. And that was just day one, start the process.
When you say there were things that they don't allow, that's because people have coping mechanisms that get them into trouble.
Yeah, they strip you of everything. They want you to totally surrender to not having control. So many of us have issues with needing to have control, or in all the little details, just being in control in general. And so they want you to surrender that by not being in charge of medications, things like that. You have to actually ask for assistance or ask for help. So it trains you and teaches you how to ask for something that you need, which so many of us are incapable of. Like, we get to that point. So it was a way to break you. The system was designed to break you in that first week so that you finally just surrendered all will and just went with the program.
What were some other things that they have you ask for?
Like protein powder. I had my protein powder, and it drove me nuts. The first week, I hated all this. I was really, I I filed grievance after grievance, and I was frustrated. I couldn't get my protein when I wanted a damn protein shake. It was really frustrating. But then I started to see the point of the process. I got more and more comfortable asking. So I started to see, okay, this is where they're going with that.
Why do you think you had such a hard time with the asking? Like, did you build it up to it's this inconvenience or shouldn't be this way? Or did you just like simply not like it?
I just never had to ask for anything. I've been so independent and on my own forever. I've never had to ask for anything. I've just done it. Yeah, I wanted a house, I went and bought one. I wanted a job, I went and got one. Just everything I ever needed, I did. And I got for myself. I never needed to go through somebody else, another channel.
I think so many of us are that way. Like, that's just how we've built ourselves up. And that almost prompts in me this, like, what if we challenged ourselves to actually ask for help even when we didn't need it? Like, you know, you're making crew dinner. No, I don't need any help. Actually, do you want to cut this up for me? Like, just little ways to start breaking that habit so that when push comes to shove, we have a little bit of familiarization with asking.
Yeah, because we're all going to need help at some point. Yeah, and it's just the point of community is lean into each other, and you can't be an example for somebody else if you're not ever asking for help yourself. So if you want people to ask for help from you, you need to be giving them the same example.
Yeah, and that community, as we've talked about, there was zero way for you to be able to go through what you went through without community, and so you arrive at Deer Hollow, and suddenly you're being forced to ask. Ironically, not even community, but strangers. Like, they're not even people you're familiar with, asking them for help. After the first week, how did that start changing for you?
I just gave into the process. I mean, I really wanted to just be better. So I kind of went at it from an overachiever kind of perspective, like, how can I get every ounce of help possible? Because I need to leave healed, and
I'm leaning in, I'm going to full send.
I'm doing all the things. So really it was just, I went with that as that was my foundation. It's like, I'm going to get as much out of this.
Give us an overview of what that 40-day program is, just like in maybe 2 minutes, and then we can talk about the first like big things that came up.
First we did so every morning you start at 7 and you go to the gym, and so you have an hour of PT time, and then you come back and have breakfast, and then after breakfast, 9 o'clock, you start your counseling sessions. So from 9 to 5, it is both group counseling, individual counseling, one-on-one. There's different art therapy, dance therapy, all these different modalities throughout the day, and you spend 40 hours a week working on some kind of therapy. And then on the weekends, you were able to go on a field trip or go somewhere else and have some experience outside of, the walls of your house that we're stuck in. Whatever activity we would do, but it would, even in the activity, there'd still be some kind of therapy assigned to it. But that was every single day. It was like that. So it was just every day you go to the gym, and then you just start therapy, and you meet with different therapists. They come in, they do group activities, psychodramas. In your first week, you have a series of homework. So every couple of days, you're given another homework assignment, and that's what you work on in the evenings, in your personal time, like journaling, writing letters to different parts of yourself. And the first assignment you get when you walk in there is to give your timeline. So you go from 0 to how old you are today. And you
age 0.
Yep, age 0. And you talk about all the traumas that you've ever been through. And then you get about 4 days to be able to spend time writing it and thinking and you're journaling it all.
So you're basically writing like your life story.
Your whole life story. And then sometime during that first week, you share your life story to the group in front of everyone.
What was that like for you as you were percolating and as you were writing? I'm sure you like started at age 0 and then went to 20 and then, I need to go back and like add this.
Yeah, it was so random. It was all over the place. It was like,
As you were writing that, did that give you any perspective of like, holy crap, of course I'm having a tough time? Or was it, were you not even there yet?
I wasn't even there yet at that point. Not at all. It just kept coming in and in and in and in. And just so many memories kept coming in and it kept going. But the one thing I did by the end of the 4 weeks, I started to ask myself, how did I not get here sooner? Mm-hmm. I was like, kind of like, wow,
Absolutely.
I'm surprised I haven't had a breakdown sooner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have the homework to create the timeline. You're doing this on your own time, and then you present it to the group. Mm-hmm. How many were in your group?
We had about 8 to 10 in our group.
So 10 people that you've
Strangers.
barely known for a week. Mm-hmm. That sounds so hard.
Yeah, and you tell them your whole life story. I mean, and this is stuff I hadn't even ever talked about. I never brought up, never even gotten to the point of being able to talk about this stuff in counseling because I just lived such a tough life. Mm-hmm. I never even got the point, like, to go back. So you did there. They ripped the Band-Aid off and you share with everybody, and it just takes the shame away because afterwards, after the 4 hours of sharing my story, everybody in the crowd just like, yeah, me too. And it was just like none of those things I shared mattered. They were just like, yeah, me too. I've been through that. And there's just no shame around it.
Which the resonance, I bet that you felt in some ways, like relief of understanding was probably like a balm. It's probably like really its own type of little healing.
Yeah. And nothing that they did there wasn't for a reason. So they would kind of set you up and try to activate you or set you up for failure or set you up for success. And they would set you up for these like life examples. And a big one was for that timeline and just being able to doing that in the first week. It's like, seems like you would do that at the very end after you get to know everyone. But the point of doing it in the very beginning is because you don't know these people and it's about the vulnerability and then being able to share with anybody.
No, being known and knowing others.
Yeah.
I bet the bonds that are created from this experience too, like when you know the deep, dark experiences of someone else, you can't but feel bonded to them. Mm-hmm. So that gave you something that you didn't have before too, in just the community aspect.
Yeah. And it gives you an ability to have more compassion towards other people too. Because hearing everybody else share their stories, it also made me realize, like, wow, it's not just me. Like, kind of from an ego perspective, like, I'm not that unique. I'm not that special that I've had this hard life. Everybody here has had a hard life. Like, yeah. We're all on the same even playing field, the even deck. We're all struggling. And so it was a way that I felt like I actually, like, belonged for the first time. And I just kind of found people that would understand without having to tell them this whole life story. They just knew. And so we could just start from day one and have a, intimate friendship and relationship just because we know each other's stories.
Isn't it remarkable how I think the Western world is set up in such a way that we just know people on such a surface plane? Like, and I do think that to a degree, JD, my husband and I were talking about this earlier this week, that I think you can, as a person, only offer so much of yourself to be known so long as you only know a certain portion of yourself. So if I don't know myself, if I'm this deep as a person and I only know this much of myself, then I'm only able to give a teeny tiny fraction of being myself to other people. So it's like we have to have, that's why I like the process of the human experience from a conscious awareness perspective is so incredible and such a gift, because as we come to know ourselves more, we're able to like share ourselves with others in a way that is so authentic and so real. And that, like what you're describing in sharing the depths of the timeline, that's maybe not everybody that we come across we share that degree, but like that is the level of being known that we're meant for and that we need to have as humans, because that's really how we build community. It's not just knowing faces and names and having a couple beers or, yoga classes together. It really is like knowing someone's experience and being vulnerable to like have that resonance with each other.